in the back. But if you would like to vote, we'd like to have your name there and make sure that it's all recorded to make this all official. With that, I'll turn it over to Joel to get us started.
Okay. Jack, did you officially call the meeting to order?
No, I haven't.
I missed that. So if you wouldn't mind calling the meeting officially to order.
If you haven't met Joel Gregozeski, he keeps me on track. So Joel's our new town administrator. He's now over a year in, so he can't really say he's new anymore. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:31 p.m. This is our special town meeting for the town of Greenville. It is August 21st still?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, good.
Still is.
6:30 p.m. And Joel, I'll let you have the floor then.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and go through a brief orientation. Can everyone hear me okay first before? Okay. For tonight's agenda, this is a special town meeting. If you have not attended a town meeting before, town government is unique as opposed to cities and villages that require what is called a town meeting. Every year in April, a town meeting is required under Wisconsin state law. In addition to those town meetings that are annually required, a town meeting can be called to order either by the electors, meaning the residents eligible to vote in the town, or by the town board. And there are certain authorities that are vested in a town meeting, and there are certain grants of authority that can be established as a result of that town meeting. That is really the essence of why we're here tonight, in order to grant authority to the town board in order to construct a new fire and safety building. So we'll go through kind of a couple things tonight. So I'll give you a little bit more detailed overview of a special town meeting. We'll give you a brief presentation on the fire and safety building proposal. We're assuming that most people have seen, read, heard, or watched information on this proposal, and hopefully you came out to our polls last week Tuesday and voted on our referendum. So much of this is going to seem a little redundant to you, but we'll go through it anyway, just in case you've been living under a rock the last few months. Beyond that, we'll be seeking a resolution authorizing the town board to construct that new fire and safety building. If there are interested individuals that would like to participate in the discussion or debate about the construction of a new fire and safety building, there'll be an opportunity to do that as well. And then we'll adjourn the meeting afterwards. Okay, so a special town meeting. The state statutes identify what can and cannot be done during a special town meeting. For tonight's purposes, only motions or actions that are listed in Wisconsin State Statutes, Chapter 60.10, can be taken. All other motions for tonight's purposes are considered advisory. And the reason for that is that there was a public notice that was required to be published so many days in advance of the meeting. That public notice identified the action that was to be taken at tonight's meeting. Any other action beyond that, whether it's allowed within the statutes or not allowed in the statutes, cannot be taken. And if they are just advisory at that point. The town chairperson who is elected to office chairs all town meetings, whether it's the annual meeting or a special town meeting. And so Chairperson Anderson has called the meeting to order, and he will preside here this evening. For voting purposes, you will have an opportunity to vote again on a motion that is presented to you this evening. You must be 18 years of age, and you must be an eligible voter in the town of Greenville. Ultimately, you have to be a resident of the town for at least 10 days. You can't be a convicted felon, I don't believe. So if anyone's a convicted felon, you can't vote either. So essentially, the same rules apply tonight that would apply to you if you were to register to vote at a polling location for a normal election. In our case, majority rules. There is not a 2/3 majority. It's just simple majority rules the day for tonight's meeting. Okay, to be a little bit more specific, Chapter 60.10, Paragraph 2, Subparagraph F, identifies that the town electors must grant the authority to the town board to do certain things. And in this particular case, they must grant the authority to construct a new town building. If you recall, I think it was in 2012 or 13, the town purchased some land for a new fire station. There was a town meeting established that granted the authority to the town board to acquire that land. This is very similar in nature. A lot of questions have come up. Why do we have to have this when we had a referendum? I guess the easiest way that I can explain it to you is that the referendum essentially identified the financing for a project. Now the electors have to approve the actual construction of the project. So the financing has been approved. You have the money authorized by the electorate. Now we have to physically approve the actual construction. So again, just to be a little bit more specific, the statutes are very specific on what actions are allowed at a town meeting. Many powers within the statutes only authorize the board to do something. The board can decide not to implement. So even if you give the authority to construct a new fire station, the town board can elect not to do it. So you're just giving them the authority to make their own decision. Again, if the authority is granted, the board cannot exceed what was approved. So if tonight you approve the construction of a new fire and safety building, it doesn't mean tomorrow they can go build a new community pool or a new library or anything to that effect, okay? It would be specific to that action at the meeting. Okay, to give you, let me go back to that. I think we were going to talk about voting method, correct, Jack?
Yeah, before we get too far, it's okay where you're at. Don't worry about it. So there was a point in here where Joel was talking about whether you're eligible to vote this evening or not. Is there anybody here that has questions about whether they're eligible? See, there's a couple of young gentlemen back there. They're probably not 18 or eligible, so we'll not count them. But
you can stay. You're welcome to stay and watch.
Absolutely stay.
Yep.
Or go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. Just don't take the microphone with you. Okay. It looks like everybody here is eligible, so we'll take that into account, that everybody that's signed in is eligible. So we need to determine our method for voting. So I'd like to propose the option of just stand and move to a side of the room. With the number of people here, I think that will be very telling whether we have our 50%, 51% that we need. And it'll be quick and efficient. Otherwise, the second option would be to do a paper ballot vote. And everybody would receive a paper ballot, a pen, mark what they want, put it in the ballot box. We'd have to count all those ballots before we could adjourn the meeting and move forward. So is there consensus to just do the stand and move to a side of a room?
I make a motion that we have a paper ballot.
So motion's been made for paper ballot. There's a second for paper ballot. So
Who was the second?
who was the
If
second?
you could state your
Stan
name
was
and
the
address.
motion. You need your name, please. John Keys? Yes. Need a spelling? K-I-E-S. K-I-E-S. There you go. Okay.
So we have to take a vote on this particular motion. So
Best way is for a raise of hands on this, since we haven't, this is kind of voting on how we vote. We'll do a raise of hands, and if we need to go a secondary way because it's not clear, then we'll go forward with that. So all in favor of voting by a paper ballot, please raise your hand. Opposed? Cool. The motion fails.
I make a
Majority.
motion we do it this side of the room. Your first.
And your name, please.
Brad Elam.
I second it.
And name.
James Ziegert, Senior.
Okay. Motion's been made with a second to vote by just moving individual parties to a side of the room. We'll determine that once we get ready to vote. Any questions on that? Comments? Since there are none, let's do the same thing. Raising of hands. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll vote by going to a specific side of the room when we get to that point.
okay, moving on then, just to kind of give you some background information. Again, referendum was held last week, Tuesday, August 14th. That referendum question appeared on the partisan primary election ballot here in the town of Greenville. Essentially, the referendum authorized the bonding of up to $6.5 million to construct and equip a new fire and safety building. This was the question that appeared on the ballot. 58% of voters on that election voted in favor of authorizing the bonding of $6.5 million, whereas 42% voted against the proposed project. So the successful referendum had passed on Tuesday, August 14th. So just to kind of, again, review and recap why we're here, essentially the current fire and EMS station no longer meets the needs of the department nor the community. A new station will significantly add to the safety of those who serve, as well as improve response times to the community. Part of the safety consideration and concerns that we had were related to cancer. 61% of in line of duty deaths since 2002 are related to cancer. and that's primarily attributed to some of the toxins and biohazards that they encounter in their day-to-day jobs, putting out structure fires, car fires, things of that nature. So we wanted to make sure that our firefighters were given an opportunity to properly decontaminate at the station. Currently, we do not have adequate facilities to do that. Again, these firefighters are exposed to a variety of toxins, both in the nature of fighting fires, but also biohazards. Any day they come into contact with a patient when they provide medical care, whether it's bodily fluids, bloods, things of that nature. They have to decontaminate not only their equipment, but themselves and their persons. Currently, that process is done at home. So these individuals that are exposed to these toxins and these biohazards, they get in their personal vehicle at the end of their call, go home, they expose their families and their friends to those contaminants. They have to clean themselves and clean their personal belongings at home, creating some issues there. The proposed station would provide those areas within the station to do that proper decontamination. This particular image provides an example of a recent construction of a station where you have that proper decontamination room, 3 compartment sinks, washer extractors, dryers, things of that nature to not only clean the gear and the equipment that they use to fight fires or respond to emergency incidents, but also some of their personal belongings, such as the clothes that they wear underneath their turnout gear. In addition to that, the only facilities that we have to clean persons is a public restroom. That is not an appropriate location to decontaminate a number of firefighters, much less an individual, because again, you're cross-contaminating the public who are using those facilities. The proposed station would have restroom and showering facilities for both genders so that we can accommodate both male and female members of the department. The current station was constructed in 1968 and it was designed to house the equipment of that day. Here's a picture of the equipment that was stored there in 1969. Today's equipment is much larger. The equipment on the left is the same piece of equipment shown on that black and white image. That's their antique engine that they hold. Again, you can see the size differential between today's modern pieces of equipment and equipment of yesteryear. Currently, there's dangerous and unsafe conditions within this fire station, from dangerous backing conditions to low ceiling heights to repack and recoil hose. There's also no room to work around apparatus as it's parked. So much of that maintenance has to occur outside the station, again, increasing response times because of the delay and the removal of equipment from service for those purposes. In addition to that, there's inadequate space for equipment readiness tasks, such as repacking and recoiling hose. Much of that has to be done with equipment, again, pulled out of service, put out of doors, so that they can conduct those activities within the station. The proposed station would provide plenty of space to work safely in and around equipment, would have proper ventilation for vehicle exhaust, would have centered trench drains so that water can make its way to the center of the area instead of outside, reduce slippage and fall hazards. There would be plenty of natural light within the station so that you don't have those lighting contrasts when you're moving and backing equipment into the apparatus bay. And then it would have in-floor heating, primarily for 2 reasons. One, to aid in the evaporation of moisture and water on the floor, but also to help with some of the contaminants that are exposed within the apparatus bay. Here's just another image of an example of what that fire station would look like. Again, plenty of room to work in and around the apparatus and move freely. So again, you don't have to move equipment out in order to perform maintenance or equipment readiness tasks within the station. Currently, for those of you that are on the department, you know this all too well, we utilize an apparatus bay to store and provide our gear areas for turnout gear. The proposed station would provide adequate locker areas so that the firefighters can come into the station, don their turnout gear, and then enter into the apparatus bay versus being put at risk of moving equipment and apparatus as they're readying themselves to leave the station on a call. Our offices essentially are converted closet space, so they're used as offices as well as closet spaces. The proposed station would provide both storage areas for equipment and supplies, as well as proper office areas to administer a department for a community of just under 12,000 residents. In addition to that, we have limited meeting space within the station, so oftentimes equipment have to be parked outside the apparatus bay. Again, in some circumstances, be pulled out of service so that we can accommodate the various meetings and trainings that have to occur on a monthly basis for the department. In addition to that, our department serves as the Emergency Operations Center. So right now, again, we have to move equipment out of the apparatus bay. Sounds like good music. And then basically conduct our Emergency Operations Center. So if you can imagine a severe weather-related event, such as severe flooding or a tornado, we have to move equipment out, expose it to the elements of the weather-related incident in order for us to adequately respond and conduct our logistical elements of an Emergency Operations Center. A proposed station will have room to not only conduct trainings and meetings for our department of 50 firefighters and 15 plus or minus first responders, but also serve as that Emergency Operations Center, again, not forcing us to move equipment out into the elements, but being able to be maintained and stored in the apparatus bay. The other concern that would be identified and addressed with the proposed station is just relocating the station and designing a flow and working environment outside of the station for access. The current station, we have no room to expand, and then it also conflicts with other public uses such as our public yardway site. So as these responders are arriving very quickly and expeditiously to the station, we have apparatus leaving. That creates potential hazard and conflict. But not, in addition to that, we have the public that are entering our public work site, and that constant movement and that fast interaction does create conflicts and poses not only a safety risk for our responders, but also the general public that come onto our site. Again, the proposed station we feel is an attractive facility. It was designed to be a facility that's going to last the next 50 to 75 years. The current station is a brick and mortar building that lasted and served the community very well for over 50 years. Our hope and our goal with this design is to do the same. We want to make a solid long-term investment for the community that is a wise use of resources and tax dollars. As you know from the referendum, we also identified that this project is estimated to cost about $6.5 million. There's a not to exceed amount associated with the financing of this project. What that equates to is a roughly 25 cent per $1,000 of assessed value tax impact as a result of this project. So the owner of a $200,000 home would likely see about a $50 tax impact on their overall property tax bill. The current station isn't going to be raised. It's going to continue to be put to good use for the town and our operations. Our public works facility is also very short in space. In many cases, we have equipment that's parked 4 deep. So what we would effectively do is repurpose the existing station into a public works storage facility. We'd be able to move pickup trucks and small equipment like lawnmowers and skid steer loaders and tool cats into that smaller space. So now that we would no longer have those situations where we're parked 4 deep. It would improve and increase efficiencies for those departments as well. All right, and that leads us to the motion.
So per Robert's rules, we'll follow. Motion will be stated. We'll look for a second, and then there'll be time for questions and comments. So is there anybody willing to make the motion? If you're gentle about your reading, it's right up there for you. So go ahead, sir. You just need your name.
Chuck Bassett. I approve the resolution to grant the authority to the town board for the limited purpose of construction and equipment of new firehouse and safety building.
Okay, so that's your motion.
That is my motion.
Okay, is there a second? You're Ted Williams. Okay. Do you need addresses?
Are they on the sign-up sheet?
They should be all on the sign-up sheet, right?
I'm going to give two
Okay.
to each row.
Just make
now
sure that we
'cause
get
I'm
them all.
gonna Run out, I think.
So
You guys
it
can
is.
share.
Joel, do you have more slides for me?
Okay. Do you guys have? You guys can share if that's okay.
Lisa Abbey, let's keep this moving.
Yeah, if you already have
All right.
one, I'll pass them back.
As Joel's handing things out, just the public forum section of this. Before you speak, sir, just hold on a second. So all those wishing to speak will have an opportunity to do so. You need to come up to the podium, use the microphone at the podium, state your name and address. I'm going to allow 2 minutes for each person, just so that we can move through this efficiently, and 10 minutes total. So I'm going to start out with those that are in opposition. If you'd like to come up and speak, feel free to do so. But before anybody stands to come and speak, I ask that this group remain very respectful for those that are coming to speak on either side. I have authority through state statutes to have you removed if you're not being respectful and you're being disruptive. And I will take that. and we'll make that happen if you're being disruptive. So be respectful of those coming to speak. They have an opinion, and they have a right to speak. Is there anybody wishing to speak from the opposition side? Not seeing anybody stand or raise their hands, I'm going to move forward. Is there anybody wishing to speak for the public, speaking in favor? All right, that shortens up this meeting. All right. Need a motion to close that?
So we would,
Hold on a second.
I just had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Why is there no mention of the fire building on the cover sheet?
I
So
don't even
essentially, it
know
just
what it
cites the reference to statute that allows for the town electors to approve the construction of a facility.
Yep, that follows the statute. So they were just citing the statute?
It didn't specifically mention
No.
the new fire station.
The statutes don't specifically spell out the types of buildings that you can approve for construction, so we just use the words from the statute and put it in the agenda. That's why our resolution specifically, and the motion that Mr. Ossent spoke of, specifically talks about having a fire safety building. Does that answer your question?
As long as that's what we're voting for.
So we can go back to the resolution, if you would, Joel, so that you can read through it one more time before we move forward.
Okay, and I gave out copies of a sample resolution. Is there anyone that needs a copy of that wants to read it beforehand? Otherwise, if you have an extra copy, if you wouldn't mind passing it back. Essentially, your motion that Mr. Ossent had identified, essentially it would be this resolution. Essentially what it's identifying is that pursuant to Chapter 67 Wisconsin State Statutes, the electors approved through a referendum on August 14th the financing of general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $6.5 million for the public purpose of financing the constructing and equipping of a new fire station. The next whereas identifies that the town electors have the authority to grant authority to the town board to construct such a facility, that a special town meeting has been called for today, the 21st of August. If approved, the electors have, after proper notice, have given the authority to the town board for the limited purposes of constructing and equipping a new fire and safety building. And again, it's for that limited purpose. So again, you're not granting them authority to build a pool or a library or anything like that. It's specifically for the new fire and safety building.
Thumbs up. Questions answered. Okay. And it's not necessary to close the public portion of this. I just wanted to double check. Okay, so motion's up there. Any questions on that? Any comments before we move forward with our vote? Okay. Joel, you can scroll ahead again to the slide for the vote, if you would, please. Once again, just like I gave a little speech about being respectful of people that are speaking, same thing when we go through the voting process. There's going to be people possibly on both sides of this issue. It's been a very contentious issue for our community in the past. I ask you to remain respectful and ethical in your behavior, not only this evening, but beyond this evening. There's people that have the right to their opinions, and they have that through our founding fathers. So be respectful tonight and beyond, and if I hear anything different, I'll personally come and visit you and talk to you about ethics and what it's all about being part of a community and a good neighbor. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. So it's time to vote. So we need to decide. I'm going to make it easier for Mr. Ziegert and his walker. So Jim, you can whisper in my ear, I guess, which way you're going so that you don't have to move. Okay. So I'm going to give it away a little bit, but all in favor of voting yes, please come to this side of the room. Voting no, this side of the room. And divided by the aisle. Everybody signed in, including myself. Not quite, so that's all right. So Joel, Wendy, and Kelly are not approved, so make sure you don't count yourselves. Need help?
Sure,
All right, I'll go after you and count.
okay.
So please stand still.
Well, that was a little extra compared to you.
Okay.
$74? Okay, 74.
Okay, so the motion as it was presented carries at a vote of 74 to 1. So thank you. Feel free to find your seats again. Joel, go ahead and finish up the presentation.
Just a couple quick things, just to give you kind of an idea of what the next action items will be. Now, post-successful referendum and town meeting, we will begin the design and civil engineering of the new fire and safety building. We anticipate this work to last about 3 to 4 months. So we're hoping to have that completed by early 2019. From there, we will go out and competitively bid this project. And that will be conducted between January and February of 2019. After competitive bidding and an award of contract, we would anticipate construction to start at some point in the first quarter of 2019. Construction will take about 12 months to complete, and we're looking for occupancy of the new fire and safety building sometime in the first quarter of 2020, so early 2020. That's all we have. So now we just need a formal motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
We'll be all
Make
set.
a motion to adjourn.
Brian, hold on. Name, please.
Brad Eland.
Brad and Rickert's given the second. All right, motion's been given to adjourn with a second. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed adjourning? Motion carries, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.